Travelling Matt here, and I am reporting from the Monastery of Mount St Bernard in the Charnwood Forest in Leicestershire. And this is the end of my second day, my first, after one night. I'm staying 2 nights here in the monastery. And I wanted to make a video talking about my experiences at this monastery so far, how I found it, comparing it to my stay in the Orthodox monastery of St John the Baptist last year, what I've learned, and perhaps what questions I still have. So first of all, what is this monastery? It's a Roman Catholic monastery, and it's from the Cistercian order. And the Cistercians are a very simplistic order. They used to be widespread all across Britain. And in fact, my local kind of abbey ruins, Croxton, that was a Cistercian house. And near to where I live in Stoke-on-Trent, there was a sub-house of that called Abbey Halton or Halton Abbey. And so the Cistercians were big locally. I think there was another up in Leek as well. And they were an order, well, they are an order that's very much into simplicity. The Trappists are, I think, a more extreme part of them. But obviously the Trappists are silent, these aren't. Although there is this incredible sense of silence that pervades this entire place. And they weren't so much into studying like some of the other orders. It was more about hard work and routine. So I think if I were to become a monk, I don't know if Cistercian would be top of my list. But they were big and they're here now. Obviously, because they're here now, what that means is this is an abbey that is post-Reformation. So in England, all the monasteries and abbeys were destroyed in the Reformation. And then when Catholicism became legal in the early 19th century, along with parish churches, and of course famously the first Catholic parish church in my county was in my parish, St Mary's in Creswell, built by the parish priest by his own hands. But at the same time they were establishing monasteries and abbeys again, and I think hoping to regain what they'd lost in the Middle Ages. In that way, I think we could say they failed. Britain is not a Catholic country, and in many ways it's barely a Christian country these days in terms of active worshippers. But they did do a fine job. And this abbey in particular, I think it's the largest Cistercian house in the country. Established in the 1840s. I've got 1844 in my mind. The founder donated a lot of land. And the original buildings, which include part of the church, were designed by Pugin. Now, Augustus Pugin is a very famous architect. He brought back the Gothic. He kind of revived it from the dead. It was a medieval school of architecture, and he thought it was the finest, the pinnacle of all architecture. And so he brought it back. And this is a Gothic building. And I think the bit that I'm in now is a Pugin room. It certainly has that feel about it. So yeah, it was built from the 1840s up until the 1930s when the church was completed. And it's a big church, it's a big place. There are about 14 monks here today. Interestingly, at the far end of the church, at the Pugin end of the church, there are 3 windows, and they looked vaguely familiar. And I was talking to the monk and he said they were modelled on Croxton Abbey, which is the one near me, the Cistercian house there. So that's quite nice, because when I've been sitting in the church, I've been thinking, this is a similar size to how Croxton would have been, and this is probably the nearest I'll get to, seeing what Croxton would have been like in its heyday. And so there we are. I came here because Father Andrew Swift, who is the Anglo-Catholic parish priest in Smallthorne, recommended it. After I went to the Orthodox monastery, I thought I'd like to try a Catholic one as well to compare them. And I've been and visited 2 or 3 times. Once after a work meeting, I came down in Leicester, and then I came with my friend Brian Conlon, who himself actually goes to stay in monasteries in Ireland, and I took him here, and he really liked the place. So I booked up as soon as I could, a couple of nights, and the main reason why I'm coming now, apart from the fact that I like staying in monasteries, is I'm on Tuesday. I'm off to Israel to do a walking pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And I'll talk more about that later, and obviously I'm going to be making videos about that, but I wanted to prepare myself a little bit. So I arrived yesterday afternoon. I tempted to say last night, but it wasn't that. It was about 4 o'clock, but this time of year it's dark, and it's really atmospheric, a really atmospheric place. It was very misty as well. And you come through along this long straight road through the forest, and then you turn into the monastery, and these Gothic buildings, and then I was directed, oh no, you're not here, you're at the gatehouse, and I was taken to this cottage, I suppose you could call it, and it literally was what an American would imagine England to be like in a Hollywood film. It was really beautiful, an arts and crafts building. I would date it from the 20s or 30s, and real bit of William Morris feel about it. And the electrics and the decor have not been updated much since it was built. So I had that feel of my grandmother's house when I was a kid, And I was directed up by the lady called Mary, who took me to my room, and it's St. Joseph's room, which I thought was quite suitable. So I'm about to go to the Holy Land, and I'm a dad. Why not St. Joseph? I thought that suited, and I've got this little room to myself. The only other guests, and the guest house is full, are these Africans, and I met them in the dining hall later, and they're all from Zimbabwe. And I don't know if they're all one family. They're one church group. I think most of them are one family. And I know some introduced themselves to me. They're very friendly, but I couldn't work out what like religion they were, because all the women cover their heads with these like kind of white kerchief scarves, and they wouldn't eat pork. They were really bothered that there was no pork in the food. Of course, it's Advent, so they're fasting, and there was no meat, full stop. So that was okay. But they were really bothered about the pork thing, and it turns out they're a kind of Pentecostal, and these Pentecostals don't eat pork. I didn't know that. I thought it was purely a Muslim and Jewish thing, and I think like Coptic Christians, but yeah. So they don't eat pork, and they're all from Zimbabwe. One was called Precious, which I think is the most African name going. And then she introduced her husband as Professor. Now, whether that's his name or whether he is a professor, I don't know. But there was also a little 2-year-old, and the granny introduced me to the 2-year-old, and he was called Xavier. So after Saint Xavier. Oh, there we are. So yeah, so they're my fellow travellers on the road, a group of Zimbabwean Pentecostals. Just not what I expected, but yeah, very nice, very friendly. But I've not come here to socialise. I've come here to be alone, and I'm going to be honest with you. Since we went away in the summer, we had an amazing summer this year. I mean, absolutely incredible. But 2024 has been a really good year for me. So many good things have happened, so many blessings, and not just for me, but for my son as well. Fair play to him, he passed his GCSEs, did really well in them. We had a great trip in Tajikistan, which of course you can watch the videos on. We started the year by going to Ukraine, he also walked half the West Ham Way, which I'm really proud of him doing. And then in the half term, went and did like half the mountains of Wales off his own bat on his own. I'm really proud of the lad. He's done well. But my project that I worked on was renewed in August, end of August, beginning of September. And since then, I've had no holidays, and I've just worked and worked and worked. And I've really thrown everything at making this project a success. And I've often worked on Saturdays because I was trying to save off the time off in lieu, and so not taking days off, because I wanted to use the days for going to Israel. And I'm knackered, and I'm absolutely shattered, and I needed that rest and that detox from the emails and from all the noise of life. And I think it's only when you come here to a place like this that you realise how noisy life is. And what I will say with this place, there is an intense silence. The silence is almost deafening. You can hear it. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but that is how I feel. That's how I perceive things. And it's incredible. Just the lack of sensory overload. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And yeah, this place feels really special to me. I think in terms of as a place, I prefer it to the Monastery of St. John the Baptist. That said, there's other stuff that I prefer about that one, and I do want to go back there and explore that in more depth. But, I mean, part of that is the setting of here. The setting is wonderful. It's this, in the middle of the English countryside. It's a very English setting. And you've got this glorious church and complex around it. And what's nice as well is, and this was a little bit of a criticism with the St. John the Baptist one, is there was services, but they differed every day. Whereas what this is it's essentially the Benedictine rule, and there's 7 daily prayers, and they're at the same time every day, more or less. So your life it works around these prayers. And, and I got there and I settled into my room, unpacked everything, and then I went to the first prayer. And this sense of peace. And, there's only 14 monks. And to be honest, they ain't the best chanters in the world. This ain't some like Gregorian chant CD stuff going on here. But there was just something so comforting about it. And human about the fact that it was a bit discordant. And I, even in that first session, I was already sat there and decluttering my mind, and I had ideas for essays, and already the kind of spiritual side was coming to the fore. It was great. Then I had a tea, and then there was the I forget the names of them all. So one was at 5:30, and then there's one at about 7, and that I think is Vespers. I think. I'm not sure. But I went to that. And there was an adoration of the Blessed Sacrament before as well. And, just sitting there, I got the idea for an essay. I virtually wrote an essay in my head. Just then. And then I went back to my room, and I did do a little bit of writing, but I went to sleep very early, 9 o'clock. I mean, Alison normally goes to bed at 1 or 2, 9 o'clock, because they have one called Vigils at 3:30, and I thought, I'm going to make it. And I did. I got up, and it was so magical walking in the middle of the night, literally, people who stay up late don't stay up that late, and people who get up early don't get up that early. It's literally the most difficult time. And it was cold, and you go in the side chapel, which is a bit you're not normally allowed in, and just sitting, and you couldn't even see the monks, but just sitting and listening. And actually another essay came to me then, and so I came back, wrote a bit of it for half an hour, and then went to sleep. Because the problem is, my phone had run out of battery, and I then missed the morning prayers and the Mass, because I managed to do the night one. So anyway, I've sorted that problem out now. But yeah, so I missed those. But yeah, it really powerful, and the ideas just flow. It's incredible. Today I woke up, as I said, missed the Mass, missed the breakfast, So what I did is I walked a short distance to a place called St. Joseph's Tea Room, which I've been before. It's a former monastic building. It's not owned by the monastery, but it is owned by some sort of Christian charity. And they got this tea room, and it's very nice. But I borrowed some books from there before. So I came to give the books back, and I had a little bit of an Eggs Benedict breakfast and a latte. And then I walked back, and it was nice just going for the walk, and the scenery, the everything was glorious and crisp. It was like, with the skeletal trees at winter. It was fantastic. And then I did go to the prayers at midday, did go to the lunch, managed to write an essay or so. But the phone issue was a problem because I can't pay for anything. And so what I did is I went off in the afternoon. Well, in the afternoon, I went to see, I asked if I could see a monk, and I did. It was a 98-year-old father came to see me, and I told him about my pilgrimage, and asked, any advice for prayers and stuff on the pilgrimage. He said he thought the pilgrimage sounded a wonderful idea, and he's promised that the community will pray for its success. So we have a Cistercian house praying for us, which is pretty good. But yeah, then more worldly things. Went out to try and fix the mobile phone thing. Drove to the co-op in the next town. I had said I wasn't going to use the car, but this is an emergency, and it looked quite a long way to walk, and it would have been a struggle walking. Went to the co-op, got this charger, but then I couldn't pay for it because the phone was dead, so they put the phone on charge. I walked around this little town or village, Wickick it's called. The church was shut, looked like it might be 15th century in parts. And there was also remains of an old railway station I noticed in a castle. Got back, the phone still wasn't working, so then I drove to a place called Grace du Priory, which was a medieval Augustine nunnery nearby that I read about, and walked to that. It was a bit of a walk to get to it. Not that impressive as a set of ruins, but interesting nonetheless. And then I came back, the phone charged somewhat, paid for the charger and everything, came back here in time for the services. And that's that. I don't know, there's just a great feeling here. It's the peace, but it's also, like last night when I was coming out of the, I think it was the Vespers, or the one after. I'll have to work out which is which. It's really bad of me. But there was a mist over everything. So all these blanket of clouds in the sky and a mist around. And you almost felt like this monastery and its complex was like this ship sailing across an endless sea of nothingness. A ship of piety sailing across the sea, and all beyond was unreal. A bit like the film Solaris, if anyone's ever seen it. And the only guide to something outside was the full moon, which was trying to pierce its way through the clouds. Because that illusion, which was beautiful, was destroyed when a car went along the road in the distance. But it was nice for a few moments, yeah. As to comparisons with St. John the Baptist, I think the big criticism of here is you come to a monastery to partake in monastic life somewhat, and the community are very separate. So, they are in one half of the church and you're in the other, and there's a barrier between them, and you don't even get close to them. At St. John the Baptist, they mingled with the laity. And, you saw them chattering as you went to and from the dining hall. And, of course, in the dining hall, they ate with us. Not on the same table, but, you could talk, you could meet people. Actually, they didn't chatter in the dining hall, because during the meal, it's silence, which it isn't here. Whereas, the guest master monk comes out and, he puts the food out, but that's all he does. So you actually hardly see the monks. Now, I've had a chat with the guest master. He's from Wakefield, and obviously the 98-year-old father. And I did very briefly speak to a Filipino monk, but that's it. So you don't get as much sense of the community. And I think that's a shame. I mean, the other thing is that the Orthodox community was large. I mean, there was about 40 of them, male and female, which I think gives it a different dynamic, and growing, whereas this is a dying community. Monasticism is declining in the Catholic Church rather than increasing. And so there's a tinge of sadness, a tinge of familiarity, of course. I mean, as an Anglican, we all know about the decline of the church, but it's a little sad, I'd like to see a more dynamic and alive monastic sector, but then that only happens when people join it. And since I am not a monk and not about to become one, then I can't really moan about it if other people don't do it. I just don't think it's my calling. I think anybody will know me. I'd enjoy it for a while and probably get bored after a bit. I mean, what is different, because they're not pushing the faith on you like the Orthodox do. I mean, there is a little bit of a pressure to convert at the Orthodox monastery, which you don't get here. I mean, like I say, there's a load of Pentecostalists. There's no issue with that. So, yes. So there is that. And that is certainly a concrete difference. I don't know what else. The scale is so much larger, and it's beautiful, but maybe it's too big. I mean, well, let's be honest, if they were building it now, they would never build a church that size, would they? I mean, it's enormous, like a cathedral. And I'm usually the only one sat in the public area, because the Pentecostalists haven't been to a single service, not their religion. And, I mean, in the day, there's a lot of visitors, actually. A lot of visitors come, which, of course, the Russian monastery doesn't get. But, a lot of casual, where people popping in, and there's a shop, and they brew their own beer and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, at night and early in the morning, you're the only one there. But then there's also something special about that. Like, you've got something very sacred. It's a great blessing to have it, sort of thing. So that's that. I will probably do another video tomorrow. If there's anything else I've learnt. But in the meantime, this is me in St. Joseph's room, which is not the St. Joseph's room where I'm staying. This is a private day room where you can sit and contemplate, and I love this little room. It's got a picture of the visitation of Abraham by the angels, I think it is, and on one wall, and then it's got Madonna and Child on the other by Raphael, and that painting, which is not normally my cup of tea. Yesterday I was sitting in here for about half an hour just staring at it. I found it really powerful. Like the Madonna is so human in it, but she's also divine as well. And it reminds me, and I guess it reminds me of a statue that I stopped before on the way to Sisi, and I guess the statue was probably modelled after it. But that statue, it was Our Lady, but it was also Venus, and it had this hint of this pagan past. And yeah, she's a bit beyond religion and time, I think. It's quite special. So that's that. This is me, Uncle Travelling Mount, from the Cistercian Monastery of Mount St. Bernard in Leicestershire. So, keep travelling.